Hey, Katherine, welcome.
Hey, Han, so excited to finally do this with you.
Yes, I'm here today with Katherine Lee, and you are my first significant female leader on my show, and I'm just so glad to have the time to be with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Incredible honor to be that. You know, for me, leadership is leadership. It's not gender specific, but there is a distinction with women in leadership. So I'm so excited to talk both topics with you.
So we're going to talk today about who you are, your own, context of your leadership, and then I want to just pick your brain about your beliefs about leadership, and we're just going to get into some great stuff. I just spoke last week to a big group of international leaders, but the sad thing I told you last night was that there were no women in the group. And I just thought that makes everything so one-dimensional. We'll talk about that.
Great, can't wait.
So tell me about the Ultimate Source.
Well, the Ultimate Source, for 20 years I've been in the realm of personal development. I was in the secular world, for lack of a better word, meaning I could teach faith-based principles, but I couldn't bring scripture or my own personal faith into it. So it was tremendously successful. We had so much fun, but few years ago, I really felt the calling to now it was time to bring the faith-based version of personal development into this realm. So take the same principles, put the scriptures that the truth was based on, and then share it. So really what we do is we teach how to overcome 6 common challenge areas. And studying people across the world, leaders or not, we all face things like fear, stress, negative self-talk, toxic people, right? Plus our toxic distractions, things that we all face. So we teach the 12 life areas that help overcome that and help equip you to take those negative stressors and those negative things, have them be a flag to say, oh, great, I feel fear, I see stress. Now I can just turn my energy to a life area.
Hey, I want to hear a little bit more about that first 20 years, because you've told me a little bit, but for 20 years you were in corporate training or corporate, just a little bit, what were you doing at that time?
Well, it kind of developed.
Companies and stuff.
Yeah, it kind of developed over time where first I just went in as a speaker to different companies. I was out on the speaking circuit, and someone would walk up to me in the audience and say, will you come speak for our company? And I was so privileged because it tended to be things, I live in Southern California, so Disney Imagineering or Boeing or Beckman Coulter. And so all of a sudden I was in these huge companies that had a huge employee base. And what they saw was, wait, it seems like you have a series. Like that was really good, but we can tell there are other things because of these 6 challenge areas, 12 life areas. So I began to create series of talks, and then the management would want to meet with me to do some business strategy. So it kind of grew from there.
That's cool. That's great. And then after 20 years, you decided to shift it. And can you, and we'll put all this on the show notes, by the way, for our listeners. I assume you can give me some summaries and where people can find you, but also, can you rattle off those 6 areas again? Yeah,
so the 6 challenge areas that we really address are negative self-talk, fear, stress, toxic people, toxic distractions, and procrastination.
Wow.
You know anybody that deals with any of those things?
Yeah, like me.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So now you're doing the Ultimate Source. It's not all you're doing, but it's one of your big passions. So now going forward, what is your passion? What are you seeing that just really encourages you? You've been on a road trip. We're actually in your big RV here today in Denver. And what are some of the things you're seeing that really encourage you out there?
Yeah, I think the greatest thing is the secular versus biblically based, now that we've launched the faith base, is human beings are human beings. They need the same things. Whether we package it one way or another, the foundational needs of human beings are to be seen, to be understood, and then to be equipped with the tools and resources to live the abundant life that they were meant to live.
Right.
Yeah. So that really encourages me because we tend to go, what's my niche? And not that we don't have niches, we certainly do, but it's common core for everyone, those things.
Okay, let's talk about leadership. You're a significant leader. I define leadership as influence. And you influence a lot of people with your healthy living business as well as your Ultimate Source. So let's, how do you see leadership?
Leadership for me, as you said, is influence. These days, a lot of people measure influence in fame. They measure influence in numbers. Everything that we do now is based on how many likes did I get? How many followers do I have?
Yes.
We really measure everything by numbers. And to me, numbers don't matter. We all know people that have huge numbers of following and they're influencing in the wrong way. I mean, I am especially concerned about our children, that they're following all these people, and these people they perceive as fame and influence because of numbers. Where to me, influence and leadership is about, are you making a significant difference? Did you actually come into that person's life, impact them with some bit of love, knowledge, a tool, a resource that they can take back into their everyday life, and it creates satisfaction and it creates peace in their life.
Wow. Let's talk. Can you give us an illustration of somebody recently that you've seen a transformation in one of those arenas, without giving us their name? But tell us a victory story just in the last year of somebody you've really helped.
Wow. It's such an amazing privilege. I was working with a CEO, and actually a group of people on a particular project. And we were really moving forward in a huge, record-breaking type of a situation in what was being produced. But the power was the individual relationships that were built on the side of, I'm struggling with this at home. Or how can I manage this huge success, which is fantastic, but with it is coming a lot of the stress, a lot of the pressure. And I'm wanting to hide, or I feel like I'm not worthy, or I feel like I'm not able. And so 2 people in particular that were a part of that program, to be able to, one thing to be the business strategist to guide the direction of the project, but the other to be the personal side by side. Let me walk with you, and let's make sure you're healthy regardless of the success of that project or program. That was a huge, huge thing for me. And now we're great friends in the midst of this huge project that has taken off.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are limited in their leadership because of personal struggles, right? And that sounds like your message.
Very much so.
It's personal development and personal growth have to be part of your leadership journey.
Yes, because what is success if your life behind it is a mess?
Yeah.
If we're leading in our home, if we're leading in an organization or a church, and when we go to bed at night, we are miserable because the people closest to us see us differently, or feel left behind. One of my core tenets is I will not sacrifice my family on the altar of ministry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will not sacrifice my family on the altar of success.
I think John Maxwell said, success in leadership is when the people closest to you respect you the most.
Yeah. Can I tell you a story about that? My favorite day so far in my life as a person was my daughter went to an event with me. She was probably 15 at the time. So a 15-year-old, you don't know how they're going to react to your world. So she goes, and people kept stopping her and saying, you're Katherine's daughter. Oh, this difference that she's made, you're Katherine's daughter. Do you know how wonderful she is? And so she came to me with only the way a teenager can.
Yes.
And she said, Mom, if one more person stops me and tells you how great you are, and she said, they're saying stuff to me like, do you know how great your mom is? Now, I was waiting for the other shoe to fall for her to say, well, they don't live with you, right?
Right.
Because she was a 15-year-old teenager,
Right.
and although she was great,
Yeah.
but you know what she said? She said, I wanted to say to him, of course I do. I live with her. Wow. Yeah.
I can see why you think that's the most precious day of your life.
Yeah. When it comes to people's compliments, that was the greatest compliment I could ever get.
Something similar to that happened to me when I left World Venture after 32 years, and they threw a big farewell dinner for me, and my children all came, and my oldest son was asked to speak on behalf of the kids, and it was so precious. He said, we never felt that Dad put this work, this ministry, before us.
Well, and I want to make a point to the listeners. I know your story enough to know you walked in with the boundaries of saying, yes, I will take this position with these boundaries in place so that my family feels that way. And I had the privilege yesterday of being in your home and in your office, and I saw the picture that one of your sons made with all the words that described you. And I stood there. I couldn't look at anything else until I read every word, because that is legacy to me.
Oh,
that is success.
Yeah. Well, I like to say, how many people at the end of their lives say, I wish I'd spent more time at the office?
Right.
Nobody.
Don't think it happens.
No, everybody says it's all about your family and your children. I think that's, the older I get, the more important that is to me.
Well, and the stressors, the challenge right now with what I call information overload, or the tyranny of choice, is that there are a million ways to distract us now, not like it used to be.
You're right.
Right? It used to be you would go to the office and then maybe you were too many hours at the office. Now, everything goes with us. Our phones,
comes
everything.
To your purse and to your hip and to your pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything is linked, so it's more difficult now to create those boundaries. At least that's the perception.
Right, and you have to turn things off from time to time.
That's
because when I became CEO, I had 4 little kids at home.
Yeah.
Aged like 3 to 11, 4 little kids. And I told my board I will not sacrifice these kids for this work. However, I had to work a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm not saying goof off, don't work but 20 or 30 hours a week. But what do you do when you are home?
That's right.
And what do you do when you are with your children? Yes. Are you on your phone and you're checking your Facebook and your Twitter, or are you just... We have to lay it aside. Yeah.
And I think that showing your children hard, focused work, that you're making a difference, that they're not the center of the universe. See, that's the other side of the coin. That's why we teach, yes, there's these 6 challenge areas, but where's the truth and the line between them? A level of stress is actually good. If we don't have a level of stress, if you think about a rubber band, that elasticity of stressing just a little bit is the purpose of us as human beings, to grow and stretch, right? But if we stretch too far, that's where it can snap back and hurt us. And so I think it's very healthy to teach and see. To me, that's leadership. To me, that's influence. To teach everyone that's watching you, from your children to the people that work, whether it be in your staff or in your ministry, to have them watch, I do work hard and I work smart. And I also know how to play hard and play well with my family, and to be present.
Get a life, yeah. I want to get into some more leadership questions for you, but I'm real fascinated by the message of the ultimate source. You talked about those 6, what do you call them,
challenge areas.
The 6 challenge areas. Now give me a little bit of feel and our listeners for the message that you give to, do you have like a counter message for each of those challenge areas?
Yes, it's a combination. So let's say, for instance, somebody is experiencing...
Let's use an example,
Yeah, I think that's important. So let's say somebody's experiencing stress that they know, right? Because somebody might experience that, especially in leadership.
I know a lot of people listening right now are saying, okay,
I get
with that.
I know that one. Yeah. So if somebody is facing stress and it feels to that point like this no longer feels exciting, because to me that's the line. Stress, as long as it's exciting... but when it starts to pull from us, that creates fear or procrastination. See, those challenge areas start to layer. So when we start to see that, you can turn your energy to the life areas. So for instance, balance and fulfillment is one of our 12 life areas. It's about living through your senses. So it can be something as simple as walking outside and looking up at the sky, putting your feet in the grass. Not to quote a funny movie, but Pretty Woman, where that scene with Richard Gere, where he goes out, where he's having his revelation, and he's walking in the grass.
Yes,
that's balance and fulfillment. Think about it. Everything that we experience first comes through our senses.
That's true.
So if we can tap into that for that moment immediately, we can measure that our blood pressure changes, our focus in our brain gets clear. So that's an example. But also there's rest and relaxation. That's another one of our 12 life areas. So let's say you're feeling stressed. I say 3 is key. Taking 3 deep breaths.
Okay.
3 is key, because that's what we know starts to shift physiology. Okay, so just doing that. Then we can add this life area, spirituality and faith, another one of the 12 life areas, and say a prayer. God, give me perspective here. Or let me have, the focus on what is important in this moment. And so it begins, and you can layer them. Rest and relaxation, that other half of rest, which is the breathing, is relaxation. Do something fun. Go on and watch a funny YouTube video and laugh for a second.
There you go.
That relieves stress. So you can multi-layer the life areas to counter any of the challenge areas.
Wow. I know people are going to want to know wow, where can they get this teaching? So just as a sidebar, where can people get access to your teaching?
Well,
Do you have videos? Or?
Yes. We have all sorts of ways people can tap into what we do, but really the best thing to do is go to theultimatesource.org. The Ultimate Source with an S, theultimatesource.org, and you can sign up for free videos. That will then put you in the place to receive more information. And of course, you can always unsubscribe, but you get 6 free videos with core teachings. They're not promotional videos. They are literally pieces of our video series. We have a year-long video series that people can get 1 video a week just to teach these principles, and it builds from there.
Nice. That's great. Well, I've watched some of these videos, and they are powerful. I love it. Now, about your leadership legacy, I told you I was going to ask you this question. Now, you still got a long way to go, and you still have a lot of dreams, and you've been sharing some of your new dreams with me and Donna last night, you and Michael. But looking back, what are some things you're the most satisfied with as a leader?
Yeah.
Say, man, I am. You already told us about your kids, and that's huge.
Huge.
But just in terms of your influence, I look back and say, I'm fulfilled. You know, if I died tonight, I can look back and say, this happened.
Yeah, that's such a powerful question. And when you told me you were going to ask it, you said, this isn't about a pride thing. And I immediately said, absolutely not. We all as leaders need to have a God confidence, meaning we have our gifts and talents, and we have built our skill and our experiences for right now. And if we can stand in that confidence, we can have continued influence and then legacy. So for me, I think it's a couple of things. One is that people genuinely say, you gave me the tools. It wasn't dependent on them tapping back into me. I never wanted that. I'm an introvert. People have a hard time believing that, but I am. I never wanted people dependent on me. I wanted to equip them with the tools and resources. So that's huge because it goes beyond me. It lasts beyond me. The second is that I did point them to the ultimate source. When somebody says, what is the core difference in your life? It is my relationship with God. And to me, there is no better personal development. There is no better life coach. There is no better resource than the very one that designed us and created the design that creates the abundant life ultimately that we have.
That's beautiful. I love it. Okay, let me ask you a couple of other questions about leadership. What are some of the key characteristics of leaders that you love to follow?
It's huge. One is that God confidence, meaning somebody who has clarity in who they are and what they are about. What is their particular, not just niche, but what difference do they want to make?
But you're not saying you only follow God followers.
No, not at all.
Just to make sure.
No, not in the least. Yeah. I really, anybody that has clarity of their own personal purpose and influence, that has knowledge and wisdom that makes a difference. And then humility. So there's a God confidence, meaning what I mean by that is whether someone knows God or not, they're fearfully and wonderfully made, and they're allowing that to be animated in their life. Okay. So that's a key point.
So humility.
Humility is the second. So there's a confidence level, but then there's a humility to keep in check that they don't know it all, that they are willing to say, I don't know, let me find out. Or let me tell you what I do know, but also let me tell you what I don't know. And that I need other people. That's a huge thing for me. If somebody thinks that they can stand alone and they never ask for help from anybody else, I can't follow that leader because I know I can't do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Other characteristics?
Can
you think of some examples of people out there in the world today, or somebody that's no longer living that you say, now there's a leader I really respect?
Mm-hmm. Oh, tons. I am a student of people, and especially people that, to me, a leader means they know where they're going and they're confident and they have their specialty. And so, I mean, I could name everybody from your father-in-law, Mark Bubeck, and Warren Wiersbe. But then there's John Maxwell. There's Malcolm Gladwell, who I love his work that is current.
How about some women?
I was going to say, I got to give the other side of the gender here.
Yes, please do. Yes.
There is, I look at the fact that Dr. Caroline Leaf, who's a brain researcher, neuroscientist, she is brilliant. I love her work. I love Brene Brown. She talks a lot about shame, and I think she is powerful message, really, for our time. Yes. Also, and I'm losing her name right now. She wrote the book Quiet, but it's about introverts.
People have been telling me about this book.
It's incredible. And being an introvert myself, wondering, I work with people all day long,
Yes.
but I understood how we're wired. And so that book, Quiet, and the author of that. So there are quite a few people that I just think are making a huge impact. And that's what I mean about we can't do this alone. We all need to come together, and that is what creates influence for all of us.
I love that. You know, the Jim Collins, his famous book, Good to Great, he said that was one of the characteristics of a fifth level leader. The best is humility. Mm-hmm. They're not full of themselves. They don't have all the answers. They're smart enough to surround themselves with smart people.
Yes.
By the way, I'm an introvert too.
I did not know that.
A total introvert. Are you kidding me? Yes.
Okay.
And people don't believe that from me either.
Yeah.
They say, what?
And people really need to understand. I think this is important, a leadership topic for a second, because I do think that we have a skewed idea of certain terms in this world. So, for instance, introvert is a good example of that, where people think introverts don't like people or they're shy. That isn't true at all. Introverts have to do with two things. One is, how do you re-energize your time?
That's right.
And
how
that's
do you
being
recharge
alone.
your batteries?
Yeah.
Yep.
And for a long time, I'll tell you, Hans, I thought I was a fraud because I would go teach and train, and then people would come up to me afterwards, and I loved every second of it. I wanted to be present and here, and I was right there. But then it was like this wall was hit, and I literally wanted to run scared back to my hotel room, and people would say, come out to dinner with us and come. And I genuinely got to a point where I'd almost be shaking, and I had to get back to my hotel room. Well, everyone my whole life called me an extrovert, so I didn't understand it. I thought I was a fraud. So one part of being an introvert is you need to re-energize by being alone. The second part is how you communicate. Is, do you process in your head? Do you prefer to journal? Do you prefer to think before you speak for a considerable amount of time? We should all think before we speak.
Oh, you're right.
But that's another piece of it that's very important to understand.
Yeah, I've learned the same thing through the Myers-Briggs test.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, Donna, is a total people person, extrovert, so she verbally processes as she's thinking.
Yes.
But I'm an introvert, so when it comes out of my mouth, it's already fully cooked.
Yes.
If I tell her I'm thinking about getting a new mountain bike, it's probably already
getting
in the garage.
Exactly. Well, and this is key in leadership. May I talk about this? Because I actually am
Yes.
certified through a company called Highlands, where we do brain wiring testing. So you would get a battery of 19 different tests. They're literally games that you play online. Mm-hmm. This isn't a subjective questions about yourself. You play games, and then the computer spits out a result of how your brain is wired, and then I analyze them and advise around it. But one of the key things is introvert extrovert. Well, here's the problem with an introvert extrovert in communication, and this is key for leaders especially. If an introvert says something, it is a plan or a promise. Like you said, the mountain bike's already in. Yeah. Even if they're saying they're thinking about it, if they have spoken
done
it,
a lot of thinking about it.
If they're speaking it, it probably is to them. Where an extrovert communicator brainstorms out loud. They process out loud, they brainstorm. So imagine a leader that is an extrovert communicator, and they're talking out loud. Well, the introverts are taking everything as a plan or a promise.
Yes.
They're going in that direction.
Absolutely.
And
they think it's a decision and marching orders.
And I'm ready to go.
Right.
And so they lose respect for that leader, because then they go, well, look at him. He's wishy-washy. Look at her. She doesn't know where she's going because she just changed her mind. And there's a lot of confusion that happens. And the extrovert leader is going, what is wrong with my people? Yes. They're resenting me, or they just feel a level of disrespect. So this is what I always teach, the high-level leadership especially, because this can get so bad, is if you're an extrovert communicator, you need to say to your team, guys, I'm brainstorming out loud here. I will let you know when it's a plan or a promise, and I'll let you know that. And you do need to do that. But I also teach the introverts to go and clarify, is this a plan or a promise before you move? So the introverts need to speak up, and the extroverts need to clarify. And it changes everything. Once people know that, I've seen complete organizations, when we go in and teach this, they see that and hear that, and all of a sudden, all the old offenses and resentments go away. They get it, and then they move forward in it.
Yes, because they just learn, decision-making is another one of those Myers-Briggs things. Whether I'm a very fast decision maker, but my wife, for example, doesn't like to make decisions because they're always thinking there might be something better. There's no hurry.
Yes.
And when you see these two different kinds of people in meetings,
yes.
Like me, I'm driving through the agenda because as an introvert, I want to get this meeting over.
Right.
So let's get the work done.
Yeah.
And so we can go back to work. And so the people who are slow to make decisions because they really have to process it a lot more internally. You know, you're on agenda point number 8. And they're still really thinking about number 2.
Yes.
You
yes. know? And when we start to, as a leader, working with you or working with somebody like me, we come in as a third party to say, let me from the outside looking in, and with this battery of tests or perspective that we have, whether it be conflict resolution or the plan and processing, we can literally help equip. I think having some of the information makes a difference, but that's one of those things. It's okay as a leader if you're not sure how to deal with the problems in your organization or the miscommunications or the offenses. Let's get together and make something happen.
Yeah, let's talk.
Let's talk.
Hey, this is a good place for us to pause because we're got another show next week. We're just gonna take a break right now, and I'm encouraging our listeners to listen to the next episode, which is part 2 with Katherine.
Great. Thank you, Hans.